In this episode today, we are talking all about breath holds, and I want you to understand the risks and the rewards, the huge benefits that you can have when you use breath holds in your breathing exercises. So, what do we mean by breath hold? Well, there's actually two types of breath hold. One is when you have taken an in breath and you're holding the breath at the top. And then the other is the breath once you have done your exhale. So we have a breath retention and we have a breath suspension. Now, when we do breath holding, what we're actually doing is we are changing the biochemistry of our body. We are increasing the CO2 that's building up in our blood. And that means that we're actually then changing our blood pH levels, which has a massive impact on our whole ecosystem of our body. So when you do breath holds, these can happen voluntarily, obviously when we're doing a meditation or we're doing some free diving or when we're doing particular breath holds within breathing. But it can also happen involuntarily, and that might be during sleep apnea, where someone is not, it goes above and beyond snoring. There is actually cessation of breath for up to 10 seconds. While someone is asleep. And if you've ever laid next to someone who has sleep apnea and you have worried, are they actually going to breathe? Well, that can actually have long-term effects on their overall mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So those physiological effects then, what's going on? Well, we've got massive changes to the blood oxygen levels and the CO2 levels. It's actually the CO2 that is being retained when we do a hold because we're not giving us the opportunity to breathe it out. Now, there is a long-standing myth that all CO2 is bad for us, but actually we need it in order to change our blood pH so that our brain is telling our diaphragm to move and all of that good stuff that we need to have. When we do a breath hold, it is putting our body under, if we're doing it voluntarily, under a positive, deliberate and intentional stress, but it is a stress nonetheless, which has an impact on increasing the heart rate and also affecting the blood pressure. We're also activating what's known as a mammalian dive reflex, particularly when this is done in water. Now, this particular episode isn't really for free divers and the mammalian dive reflex. That will come more when I do some episodes around cold water immersion that I would want you to be aware of. So why then, when there are so many risks associated with breath hold, and there are quite a lot of risks, particularly if you fall under that category of having a contraindication, such as being pregnant, you would not want to be doing any breath hold whatsoever. You have a heart condition or extremes of blood pressure, and also if you have any history of mental health issues, extreme mental health issues, then you would not want to do any breath holds without getting permission from your medical professionals. But the benefits of doing it, if you are able to do it, is that you are improving your tolerance to CO2. And the reason that's important is that when we increase our tolerance to CO2, we don't get so stressed so easily. Our body increases its window of tolerance to stress, if you like. So we're able then to improve our stress levels. We're able to cope with things much better. Also, by doing controlled breath holding, depending on how you're doing them, you are able to enhance your lung capacity. So very often, we aren't using the majority of our lungs, right? And we particularly tend, if we're a chest breather, for example, we tend to breathe from this middle part of our chest or sometimes from the upper part of our chest. But even the lower section of the lungs doesn't really get utilized. And that's such a shame because there's so much richness down there that actually when we do activate it, our breathing is enhanced all over. And we can improve our breathing efficiency then as well. And in many breath hold techniques, particularly within the functional breathing world, what we're doing is we're deliberately increasing the ability to do short holds so that when we do those long holds, we are able to not go into full-on stress, fight or flight reaction, which has an impact then on our ability to focus, on our ability to reduce our stress levels, and can massively impact our mental health in a really positive way. But there are risks to doing this. So if you're near water, you should never do anything that involves breath holding. So Doesn't matter how shallow that water might be, a bath or a splash pool, absolutely no way, because of the risk of blackouts. There is a risk when you're doing breath holds, particularly if you're doing them on your own, that you could black out and all sorts of things could happen then, and it's not good. So don't practice breath holds on your own. Make sure someone is around and knows that you are practicing them. There's also a risk of hypoxia and its effects on the brain. So this is where we change those levels of oxygen within our system. Obviously, if you're doing it near water, there is that risk of drowning, but also the amount of stress that you can put on your cardiovascular system. We need to make sure that this is going to be safe for you. Breath holds can, from a mental and physical experience, actually give you an incredible high. It can be a very natural, of course it's natural, it's just breathing, a really feeling of euphoria and a feeling of achievement in that you have pushed your body to a limit or beyond the normal limit. So you never want to practice this alone. You want to understand that if you are doing a breath hold, you have a supervision, someone's with you, and you know what you're doing before you begin. And actually what's important with breath holds is that not that you do it for the longest time, that you gradually increase your progression with the length of time that you hold for. That's actually much better for you to do that because you're teaching your body this tolerance level. Going in straight for a super long hold is not big, it's not clever. You've got to make sure that your body is being accustomed to having these holds. And make sure that by doing that gradual progression, you become aware of what the warning signs are within your body. So we've talked all about the risks. There are also some risks to people who suffer with epilepsy. And again, we wouldn't recommend you did this, and particularly never, ever unsupervised. But this can really enhance sports performance, particularly when you incorporate breath holds into your functional breathing practice. This can massively give you clarity of thought when you're incorporating it with meditation and mindfulness and breathwork journeys. And for me, breathwork gives me such an incredible high, such an incredible sense of euphoria. But what I want you to take from this video is that you have to balance those positive effects with the very real safety concerns around doing breathworks and breath holds unknowledgeably in an uneducated way. So make sure that you do train with someone who really knows what they're doing in order to learn how to do this properly. My key point here is that if you're going to do breath holds, make sure that you're being guided by someone who has had proper training and that they know how to guide you, and that if you have any contraindication, you do have medical clearance to do it. If you are pregnant, please do not ever breath holds. Doesn't matter how experienced you are with breath, just don't. Stay off it. It is not worth the risk to you or to baby. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to know, have you tried breath holds? How do you find them? What's the longest you've gone for before you feel uncomfortable? And actually, one final thing I didn't mention earlier is that it's your recovery time from a breath hold that is more important to your body than how long you can hold for. So if you can hold for minutes and minutes, but you're absolutely gasping and it takes you 3 minutes to recover, that's not so good for your body. But if you can hold for, say, 30 seconds, but your recovery is just 1 or 2 breaths and you're not rasping or gasping, that is going to improve your overall well-being. So less is more. Progression is best. And if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and follow. Let me know below if you have ever done any breath hold practices.